Dear friends, welcome to the next session for software engineering and designing concepts. In our previous session, we have been discussing about requirement gathering and analysis phase, and we talked about the requirement gathering and requirement analysis phase in separate scenarios. In today's session, we will be looking at the software requirement specification part. That means the documentation after requirement gathering and analysis. So let's get started. So the main aim of requirement specification as discussed in our previous session is to systematically organize the requirements arrived during the requirement analysis, and they should be devoid of any inconsistent, ambiguous or incomplete information. After doing so, we have to document the requirements properly. Documentation is extremely important from the perspective of maintaining that particular software or to scale up that the product that has been developed. The SRS document is useful in various contexts. We call the document that has been developed after requirement gathering and analysis as SRS, or the software requirement specification. It relates to the statement of user needs and basically serves as a contract document between the users and the developer. You can also call it as a reference document because the developers can go and refer to this document at any point of their development phase. And it is also having the definition for implementation, whereby the various functionalities, non-functionalities and their goals are defined in this particular document. So, the software requirements specification, as already mentioned, it behaves like a contract between the developer and the customer. And basically, as already mentioned, it is also a reference document. And once the SRS document is approved by the customer, any subsequent controversies or any confusions related to the development is basically solved or settled by referring to the SRS document. So it is like the total guide for developing a particular product. Now, the development team starts to develop the product according to the requirements which are recorded in the SRS document. We shall look at the structure of the SRS document after a few minutes. So, the final product will be acceptable to the customer, and it is acceptable to the customer only after it satisfies all the requirements that are recorded in the SRS document. So after the customer gets the product, he or she verifies it against the SRS document as well. If the customer finds that certain features or functionalities are not incorporated in the developed product. So it also has a check on the development process whether all the requirements have been fulfilled or not. So basically, when we look at an SRS document, it looks like a black box specification. Now, when we are talking about a black box specification, essentially it means that we do not get a view of the system from inside. We shall get a view or understanding of the system only from the outside. That means how the system should look like is represented in the black box view. But what are the functionalities which are driving that particular product or software is not represented in this particular black box specification view. So it is only visible externally, whereby the input and output are noticed by the external people or people external to the system or entities external to the system and the system as a whole. So when you look at this particular diagram, you will see that in a black box specification, the input is noticeable, the output is noticeable, but and also the system is there, but what is there within the system is not seen. For example, let us take the calculator as a product. Now whatever input we are giving to the calculator, we can see that, and whatever output we are getting from the calculator, we can see the values displayed on the screen. But what is actually calculating, or what logic or what functions it is using, or what are the hardware components and software components, all those things are not seen in the calculator operation. So we have to understand that in a black box specification, we just get an idea or an overview as a layman who are not allowed into the integral part of the system. So moving ahead, we have to understand that the SRS document concentrates on basically what needs to be done. That means the functions associated with the product or the software, and this what is basically is specified by the customer. So this is entirely your customer specific information, that means what needs to be done, and it carefully avoids the solution, that is how to do aspects. For example, let us again go back to the calculator example. I want the addition of two numbers or the multiplication of two numbers, integer numbers. So that is actually my requirement. So that is what I want. But how the machine actually goes ahead with the calculation of those numbers is not reflected in the SRS. That is hidden. It is giving you a black box view of the system. I want the multiplication of two numbers, I get the multiplication of two numbers. That is my requirement. But how do I get it? That is not mentioned in the SRS. And as already mentioned, it should be carefully written because it is a contract or it is a reference document between the development team and the customer, and any controversies which may relate to the project will be solved or settled using this SRS. And the requirements at this stage are written using end users terminology. The end users terminology essentially means the customer point of view. That means how will the customer or how will the maintenance team respond or refer to that particular product or use that particular product. So those things are mentioned from the customer's point of view. That means the requirements that has been generated by the customer. If necessary, later a formal specification may be developed from it, but this is entirely based on the customers and the developers. So if the customers require that a more formal specification is required, which includes probably the functionalities as well as how to do aspects, then maybe a more formal form of this particular SRS may be developed. But again, this will be entirely optional and based on choice. Now coming to the properties of a good SRS document. We call an SRS document to be a good one initially if it is having certain properties. The first property is that it should be concise. Concise means to the point. You do not have to go beating around the bush for the same activity or same explanation that you want to put. You can simply mention it in one point. But at the same time, if we feel that we need additional number of words or additional representations to be included in order to make the system more clear, we are free to do so. However, it should be concise in its representation and devoid of any ambiguities, because sometimes when we try to shorten things up, then a lot of things get inside that the same particular point, and it might confuse the developer and the customer. The second point is it should be specific what the system must do. As we already mentioned, it is concerned on what rather than how to do aspects. Third important point is it should be easy to change, which means it should be well structured and modular in nature, and whenever we need to make any changes to any of the modules or any of the points, we should be easily able to do so without changing the entire structure or without impacting the entire structure of the SRS document. The fourth point is that it should be consistent and should not have variant information regarding the same aspect. Fifth is it should be complete. Often half written SRS is also accepted by the customer. However, it is always recommended to complete the SRS so that in future there are no such problems related to ambiguity or incompleteness. Next is it should be traceable. Traceable means that wherever we have missed out on something, as already mentioned, it should have a modular approach. So whenever we have missed out on any information related to any of the module, it should be traced back, or it should have the capacity of tracing back to that particular point and making the necessary changes. The seventh point is it should be verifiable. That means once the SRS is developed, it has to have the mechanism or scope of getting verified either from the senior system analysts or from the customer's point of view. Now, coming to the parts or the structure of an SRS document, it normally contains three important aspects. The first one is the functional requirement, the second one is the non-functional requirement, and third one is the goal of implementation. Now, functional requirements, as the name suggests, it consists of various functions. Now all the activities that is going inside in a particular software can be broken down into smaller functions. Moving back to the calculator example, suppose we have we look into the software and its functionalities, so we will see that a lot of mathematical functions are associated with the execution of various processes related to that particular calculator. So we can break down the entire working of the calculator into smaller modules or functions and sub-functions. So we call them as the functional requirements. So initially it is desirable that when we consider any system, we consider performing a set of functions. Let us term the set of functions as Fi. Now each function Fi is considered as transforming a set of input data to the corresponding output data. As cited in the example, I want to add two numbers or I want to multiply two numbers. So this entire function, suppose multiplying two numbers, will essentially include the input data, and there should be a function which needs to be executed, which is the multiplication function, and we get the output data. So basically function is a set of input data getting transferred to a set of output data using certain functions or using certain processes. So this is, we call it as a functional point or functional breakdown of an entire project. So talking about functional requirements, they are basically the high level requirements, and as already mentioned, we are actually converting into a the input data into a set of output data or into output data using a particular function. So if I'm considering the module or the activity or the requirement search book, the input essentially will be the author's name and the output will be the details of the author's books and locations of these books in the library. So this, we are taking an example for the library management system. So I am searching for, I want a provision of searching a book, and when I am searching a book, my input data, which should be an author's name, basically is getting converted into the output data, which is the author's books that are available in that particular library, and where is the position or what are the locations that these books are situated. So we have broken down the LMS activities into smaller sub activities based on the functional requirement of the entire system. Moving to the non-functional requirement. So when we are talking about non-functional requirement, essentially it is the characteristics of the system which are generally not expressed as functions. So whatever requirements are not expressed as functions or various processes, so we call them as non-functional requirements. They are basically added to the people, basically centered around people, hardware and software resources, which includes maintainability, portability, usability, etc. And let's go to it in some more detail. So we also have reliability issues, performance issues, which relates to how fast the system can produce the result, or so that it does not overload the system to which it supplies data, etc. Human computer interface issues, interface with other external systems, security, maintainability, etc., as already discussed. So these non-functional requirements essentially relates to the people, processes, hardware and software requirements, and the environment in which the software or in which the product should be installed or worked upon. The non-functional requirements also includes hardwares to be used, operating system or DBMS to be used, capabilities of the IO devices, standard compliances, data representations. So all these things together, they form the non-functional requirements. Note that these non-functional requirements do not or are not basically represented using functions. So they do not have anything related to input or output. However, they are measured based on their scale of performance. The final part of the SRS includes goals of implementation. So goals basically describe things that are desirable of the system, which also partially relates to the non-functional requirements. However, goals hold a very different position in a SRS. They are basically not checked for compliance. For example, your reusability issues and functionalities to be developed in future. So there are certain goals or certain aim associated with each of the requirements based on the improvement or scalability of the system. So these three parts of this SRS completes the full and final SRS. We will look at an example of SRS in our next part. So this is all for today. Thank you.